Ooh, this one smells good. Peace, everybody. Welcome to the 7th annual MECCAcon, Midwest Ethnic Convention Midwest Ethnic Convention for Comics and Arts. 1 second. Okay. No, just ignore me. Okay. So this panel is for all the women in the Black nerd community, be it comics, be it sci-fi, be it cosplay, be it speculative fiction, be it one of our fans. You know, we at times we need to learn how to cipher together, not just in formal panels, but sometimes we just have round tables where we just get to chit chat, talk amongst ourselves about whatever. On this panel, we have TaLynn Kel, Kenesha Williams, Nicole Smith, and Stephanie Williams, and myself, Maia Crown Williams. No, it's a huge coincidence.
All the
Williams. None of us are related. We just dope like that. I'm going to let all of you all introduce yourselves individually, starting with TaLynn.
Hey, what's up? I'm TaLynn Kel. I'm a cosplayer, an essayist, hardcore geek. Been doing the con scene for honestly like 15, 16 years. I have a podcast that I do. I have my own site. I just do all kinds of stuff. So, you should check it out, TaLynnKel.com. You'll probably find something you won't like and will offend you, and I'm good with that.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Hey, I'm Stephanie Williams. I am a freelance writer, webcomic creator, and I tweet a lot. So if you're on Twitter, you can find me at Steph_I_Will. And there you can find a link to my link tree where you can find all the shit I've done.
Okay, we're going to go with Kenesha because Maia is busy.
I'm sorry. I'm checking to make sure everything's streaming. Go ahead, Kenesha.
Hi, my name is Kenesha. I am an author, a freelance writer. I do some book formatting. I'm formatting something amazing coming up that Nicole is going to talk about, I'm sure. I just am dropping something new with a blurred trivia game that's coming out.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so I'm Nicole Givens-Kurtz, and I'm the owner and publisher for Mocha Memoirs Press. Our mission is to amplify marginalized voices in speculative fiction. I'm also an author. I write speculative mysteries, so think science fiction mysteries, fantasy mysteries, and I also write weird westerns.
Okay. I don't want it to be a panel. I want us to just start talking, but before we start, relaxing and talking, what had you most inspired to join the Black nerd art community as a whole, individually? Like, what made you want to not only, be a fan of speculative arts, Black comics, blah, 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 cosplay? What made you actually want to turn it into part of your profession as you grew up into your adulthood?
Well, for me, I'll start with me because I like being first. I honestly was just part of the community, like hardcore, and I got really tired of watching the community grow, like the overall community grow, and have Black people who didn't fit any kind of societal norms get marginalized in it. And because I don't fit those norms, I was also being marginalized in it. So then I said, you know what? I can start making space for myself, and I can start making space that I can share with other people. And so that just became a thing. I started doing panels, and somewhere along that line, I realized, man, I could get paid for some of this stuff. Maybe I should try to do that, and since I can, they're giving money away to some of these people. All they're doing is existing. I'm doing work. I found out they don't like paying Black women for work. So that was a real interesting experience.
To this day.
Right. And so I switched my focus on how am I going to create spaces for women like me who want to be out here and being able to promote their stuff, especially because I would go to a lot of the Black events, and it was like you go to the quote unquote mainstream events and it was all like white people. You go to the Black events, it was all Black men. And so I was like, well, where are the Black women? And, you find out some of the reasons why the Black women are participating in these other Black spaces is because the rampant sexism that is in the industry that makes them say, you know what, it's just not worth my peace and my calm to deal with this nonsense. So we ended up not having good spaces. So I wanted to start making spaces where we could do stuff and amplify our own work. So yeah.
Very much.
No, go ahead, Kenesha.
Okay, I was going to say, I wanted to piggy back off of what you were saying, TaLynn, because I created a Black Girl Magic literary magazine. It's a speculative fiction magazine where all of the stories have Black female main characters. And I created that kind of like you said, because we were marginalized. We were pushed to the side in most genre stories. You know, we weren't the heroes. We weren't the love interests. You know, we were like either cannon fodder or missing, you know? So that's why I created that. And like you said, there wasn't like a defined space for Black women. I think in this community for a long time. And, you know, like growing up, my dad is like a big influence in me for liking sci-fi and fantasy and all that. I watched it with him. I watched, you know, Star Trek. I watched all the, you know, 80s bad special effects sci-fi movies and things like that with him. And then my mom was like more like the Black literary type where, you know, we had literally like a library, like a room that was like just books. But she was introducing me to things, you know, on the Black literary spectrum, like Alice Walker and all of that. So it kind of like made sense to merge it. Like, you know, you don't have to do one or the other, you know, like you can like both of those things. And what does it look like when Black women put themselves in the forefront of genre? And I mean, it looks like this, you know,
it looks like our lives.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? Where weirdly enough, we get written as side characters in our own lives, which is some nonsense, but I'm gonna let y'all talk.
What about you, Nicole?
Well, for me, it was
Stephanie, because Stephanie, I'm sorry, Stephanie.
Oh, no, you're good. But no, like for me, it was just because I wanted to talk about shit the way that I wanted to talk about it. And if you jive with it, then that's fine. So that's pretty much been me. I've been making my way into these spaces that have been predominantly white because that's just, I'm like, fuck it. Y'all talking about the shit anyway, I'm going to talk about it as well. And I've gotten to the point where I have been asked to come on. So as far as Black spaces, I've created my own. And that's what the webcomic that I've done. And I've actually taken some of the characters that I grew up loving and put them in situations where they can shine or whatever. So that's just been pretty much me. It's Stephanie, I'm going to do what the fuck I want to do. And if you're going to find it funny, great. But I do shit because I like it and I think that it's funny. So if you think that it's funny, that's great. If not, then it makes me no difference because it's about what I want to create because I like it. That's just pretty much been me. I write about shit that I want to write about, how I want to write about it. And as far as it being Black, I'm Black, so the shit's going to be Black.
Yep.
And to piggyback on what Stephanie said, I think I've been doing like conventions for 20 years. Woo! And they've always been in like predominantly white spaces because there wasn't any space. Like if you think, you were talking about 98, like pre-Y2K, like those spaces. And so for me, my writing is always about I think every single protagonist I've written with few exceptions have been Black women because I'm a Black woman.
That's right.
And I didn't grow up seeing a lot of Black women centered in speculative fiction. And so that's kind of where I wanted to live, especially in horror. And Kenesha cannot do this. Like I'm a horror lover, mystery, suspense, thriller, horror lover at heart. And so there were no spaces, or very few, like Tannerina do, like Black women centered horror, Black scripted horror for women. So it just wasn't there. And so that's kind of my lane. So that's, I was like, well, in my press, that's what we do. If you look at our press, like even now working with Slay, Stories of the Vampire Noir, it's most of the stories have female protagonists. And that's because of what appealed to me, the editor at the time. We don't have any stories that originate in slavery. Or have characters enslaved during the antebellum. Like there's none of that. I feel like those, because for me as an editor, and again as a Black woman, I just didn't feel like that added anything else to that conversation, and they weren't necessary. We have other stories to tell, and I needed to make room for that. And so if the stories that came in like that, they just were not selected because they just didn't appeal to me. And so I just think that it's one of the things that Toni Morrison said: if you can't find the book that you want to read, then you write it. And so that's pretty much what we've all done. It just replaced book with cosplay, replaced book with webcomics. Just we're creating those spaces, because if we don't, who the hell will?
Right.
No one, because no one else is
exactly.
I mean, we've seen it. We learned, right? Like, nobody's gonna do that shit. They are content to have us working in the background. I mean, I've been to several conventions here where, again, these were Black spaces, right? And the only women who were there at the tables were the spouses or partners of the men who were promoting their work. And I was like, I don't understand how I'm up in here and it's the same people. And I'm like,
over and over again. Yep.
Where are the Black women? Because I mean, all y'all came from Black women. What the hell? Like,
the Black women are in the background doing all the work. But I'm gonna shut the fuck up right now. But yeah, that's what the Black women are. Black women are the ones doing all the work, while the Black men stand in the front and take all the credit for it. But I said I was gonna be good today, so I'm not gonna talk. Yeah, that's where
talk about it.
Funny that you said that. Yeah, I had not thought about it, because I was thinking about the first convention that I did that I had a table. I'm trying to think. I don't think the only Black women I think were at my table, because it was me and Nicole. Not Nicole. Shoot, not because I think I met Nicole at the first one I went to. So it was me and Tiara and Imshai at my table. And then it was like a row of like men. And then I think, Nicole, you had a table.
My table was up in the cut.
Right. I was like, no,
they had you in the corner in the back.
It was in the vending room. So,
okay.
Yeah, there were, and we were there with like Rosarium and a lot of other publishers. So yeah, back up in the cut.
Yeah, I had never thought about that, but I do recognize that a lot of times Black women are always, I mean, in everything, in cons, in politics, in medicine, and as we're seeing with the whistleblower, we're always in the back running stuff and making things happen and making things work. But putting us,
why they take all the credit? Make sure you don't.
So it's not that they necessarily take all the credit. I found, like, when I was doing panels with men, with Black men, what would happen is, I mean, I would be the one that applied for it. I was the one who came up with the concept. I did the questions. I came up with the presentation. I did everything. It would not have existed if I wasn't there. And then people would come and be like, "Oh, you're on this guy's panel," and I'm like, "What the hell? I made this shit. I made this shit happen." And they're like, "No, you're
my panel that he on."
I'm like, I'm gonna stop giving the credit for my work to the man who's standing nearest to me. He's not responsible for anything I fucking do. I made this. This is all me. And so it wasn't just that, you know, I mean, I'm front and center. I would literally be the one hosting the entire shit, and they would be like, "It's his panel." And I'm like, he's a guest on my shit. I don't understand why y'all keep doing this. And I need people to be more focused on correcting that. And like, I actually fell out with somebody because they didn't feel like they needed to correct it. They were like, "Well, you know, it doesn't make any sense to correct their assumptions. They'll figure it out." And I'm like, they don't figure it out. They literally sat here and watched me run this shit and gave you credit for it. They're not trying to figure it out. You have to be more assertive with it. And he didn't want to. And I was like, "Well, fuck you then. I'm out. This is my shirt. Fuck it. I'm out. I'm not doing this."
Yeah, it's I mean, those of y'all that know me, no, all 5 of y'all know me. Those of y'all that know me, especially ones that know me the most, y'all know that's been my whole convention life, is every single thing that y'all have just said. You know, I wouldn't say that it's made me bitter, because, you know, my skin's still clear and I'm still cute as fuck, but it does affect me sometimes. You know, the stagnance of the lack of respect when it comes to myself, when it comes to other women convention owners like Regine Sawyer, when it comes to a lot of sisters that run conventions, Aisha Little, it's a lot of us, Deidre Holman, it's a lot of us that don't get the same amount of respect that men get that are literally doing the same shit that we are doing, and sometimes and quite often less than what we are doing.
And doing it boring as hell.
And not well.
I run into that problem all the time. Because,
I was just talking to another prominent sister in the community the other day, and was saying about how Regine is literally in their backyard. She's literally in New York with 90% of the people that we know, and they don't pull up to her event. And she does all kinds of shit at Women in Comics, and they don't pull up and support her, which makes no sense. The only time they come and support her is when she has them on something. But if their name isn't on the billboard, if their name isn't on the marquee, they're not going to support her, but they expect her constantly to support them. And that's very problematic. That's very, I would hate to have to feel like the people in my own community where artists are prominent in New York are not pulling up because of my vagina. And that's a problem, because our Black vaginas should not be that scary. You know what I mean? They should not be like something as to where it just makes you so nervous and intimidated. Work with us.
Never admit it, though.
Y'all, right? If we working with y'all all the time, y'all should be able to work with us and not be so stressed out about it.
Well, there's enough fight for everybody, and I don't understand why the concept or the feeling is that there's not. Go ahead.
It's a control thing. A lot of it is a control thing.
Oh, very much.
Yeah, like we roll up and we're like, you got to abide by our rules. You got to do it the way we're doing it. And they're like, I don't have to follow nobody. I don't have to follow you. And they hate that. They hate the fact that they don't have the upper hand in that power dynamic. And so when you enter those types of situations, they try to get that upper hand. And if they can't, then they're just not going to show up. They need to feel like they are the strongest person in the room, the most powerful person in the room. And that is not going to happen at a Black woman-led event. And so they just shy away from it. And it's unchallenged. Like if you even talk to them about it, they go through so many mental gymnastics to explain all these reasons why, not the fact that it's because you're a Black woman and you running your shit and they're not comfortable with it. Like they will not own that ever.
Well, I think it's because I think a lot of times it's subconscious. It's just their misogyny manifesting in that way. And a lot of them don't realize that they even
don't even realize it's not that.
Yeah, like I left a certain Facebook group. I'm not gonna say no names, but because of the rampant misogyny in there, and it was a Black comic one, and I'm thinking, okay, we all are, we all love the same things, but there were people that it couldn't be any subject that came up. There was some He-Man woman hater that would come in, in the comments and start like ranting. And then you start seeing people agreeing with them. And you're like, okay, I can't be here. Like, this is not a safe space. I'm not in a room with you. This is like not a safe space because I feel like I'm going to be attacked later at some point because you can't let any subject go by without you spouting some woman hating nonsense,
Right.
Most importantly, you shouldn't even be passively letting that shit into your sphere. Like that, not even in the background if you can help it. There's a lot of times where we can't help it. We can't help it where we're getting paid a lot of times. And you turn on the TV and that shit is just part of all the media. And you're like, all right, I got to remember this ain't really about me. It wasn't written for me. And it's actually meant to denigrate me. So I got to
right,
back off of that. But when you're in the spaces where you're like trying to have community and you're trying to have your family and so forth online, like these spaces that are supposed to be someplace where you can be you, if that's part of it, it's not, you're right, it's not safe. Don't stay. And I've tried to correct it, and then I'm just like, what, I ain't fighting no more. I'm tired.
I would say, I know it'd be me, you, and Maya in the comments, like pow, pow. But like you said, like it starts to like weigh on you, where you're like, why am I even doing this? Why am I even doing this? Because I'm not going to change their mind. It's kind of like, talking to like Trump supporters. Like you have to realize you're not going to change their mind. There might be somebody who's watching the comments that you might be able to change their mind, but the person you're fighting with, you're not going to be able to change their mind.
Holding it down on Twitter. I'll be about to pull up on Facebook. I'll be like, Kenesha got it. Let me go get some more. Kenesha already pulled up. All right, bet. And then I'm inboxing TaLynn. TaLynn already working on the comment on some shit. Like, and to the viewers, of the panel that's going on right now, or round table, whatever the fuck you want to call it right now. We don't want y'all to think that this is some men bashing hour. We are expressing how the fuck y'all make us feel. Okay? It's not men bashing, it's us releasing our annoyance at y'all sometimes, because I really don't think y'all process how we have to deal with how y'all treat us. And at after some point, everybody isn't as quiet as others. You know what I mean? Kenesha is sweeter than me. TaLynn is more who the fuck want what than me. And I'm like in the middle. But everybody has, you know what I'm saying? Everybody has their level of tolerance. You know what I mean?
I thought you were going to say more diplomatic. I honestly thought that.
No, to the bitch that will rename nameless, all the way in on the chat. It's it gets old after a while. The lack of support or the strategic hating. Especially the strategic hating. Let's talk about this real quick. And then
okay, so can I start that off real quick? So when I was getting ready to start my webcomic, Parenthood Activate or whatever, there was a Black gentleman who I guess had another webcomic that featured his toddler or whatever. I didn't know who this nigga was. I had never met him before until the day that he rolled up into it, into my replies, with a quote tweeting my announcement or whatever, as though I stole his idea. I'm like, nigga, I don't know you. And you're not the only one who has a child. So what are we talking about right now? So then fast forward.
Bear them. I'm sorry for interrupting, but go ahead, sis.
Oh, no, you good. So then fast forward, because I just move the way I move, and sometimes folks follow. The webcomic is doing fine. Then all of a sudden he wants to be buddy. And I'm just like, no, because you was on bullshit from the start, and you can go be on bullshit by yourself. Like I've had to deal with stuff like that, and it's been so irritating, because I'm just like, you niggas are not the only ones who love comics or love to express yourself in this way. I'm just sorry that you do the shit boring as hell. That don't have nothing to do with it.
Right. And so like I'm this fat Black woman, right? And sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna dress it up. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm gonna be like this, where I'm just regular. And I kid you not, when I dress it up more, and I'm like, oh, let's throw the titties out. Let's be all in the shapewear and all this super tight stuff, and throw on some makeup. People see me. If I take it off, I don't even exist anymore. Like I am 100% invisible. And that's not even guaranteed if I'm in cosplay, because a lot of times people are just like, there's certain body types, there's certain looks that they're like, this is what we want to see. And I don't fit that. And there are Black spaces in Atlanta right now that have never once, I have been a guest, I've done panels at their events. They have never once shared me on their Instagram, because they have a certain aesthetic that they recognize, and that's what they promote. And so
that's so corny.
But that's the reality of all this. Like you go, like, I'm making spaces, right? I make spaces. I was interviewing people at his event, which was promo for their event actually. And we don't get along because I know he an asshole. Like I'm just like, something wrong with you. And you gonna be wrong over here, but you gonna stop trying to act like I'm, supposed to work for you or some shit. I'm doing what I do. And it's just, you learn to navigate it. Like you learn to just say, okay, I realize that many, many people will not acknowledge your existence if they don't find you physically attractive. And that's something that we have to really like really acknowledge about ourselves. Because I had this happen at a job where I used to do kind of some admin work, and there was this one person who would come to my desk and ask me for stuff, you know, and I used to get so angry when he would ask me to do shit for him. Like, I would literally like sit there and have to calm down for like 5 minutes, and then I'd go do it. And then I was like, is he asking for something out the way? And I was like, nah. Is he asking for something that nobody else has asked for? And I was like, nah. I was like, so why does he make me so angry? And I was like, oh, it's because you think he ugly. And that's legit what it was.
That's the factor sometimes, because that's how they treat us.
He was ugly, and every time he talked to me, I was like, no. So I had to realize, okay, there was some unconscious bias happening here. Maybe I need to check that shit and stop judging people on how they look.
Yeah.
And what they and like what they do, and pay attention to that. So I've been, now mind you, this was like over a decade ago. So I've been working on this. I don't treat people bad because they ugly no more. You gotta act ugly for me to be like, fuck you. But now you can be ugly and that's cool. We can hang out and everything. But it took a while.
Yeah, like even back to what I was about to say, as far as strategic hating, which I have to explain to people all the time, because it's a very real thing out here in these comic streets. Yeah. You know, people can hate on you and not be in the front line of it, but they'll definitely be heavy in the back line of it. Mm-hmm. You know, they'll hate on you by not promoting what you're doing, by not telling others what you're doing, by hiding shit off their groups when you're sharing it to their groups, even though that group is very much about what the fuck you're doing, you know, and it's very problematic, you know, because I tell niggas, oh, excuse me, I said I wasn't going to use that word today on this panel.
Oh, my bad, because I've been
all day. I wasn't going to use the word all day, though. I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying. You know, people, I'll talk about myself real quick, because I don't want to make this about me, but I'm about to talk about me because I'm the shit. So people have to learn how to not like me and still support me, because, you know, MECCAcon is not about Maia Williams. MECCAcon is about everybody but Maia Williams. So, and everybody like everybody else. So they don't have to like me. So you don't have to not support me and go out of your way to not support everything I do just because you don't like me. What the fuck I got to do with Greg Ellisay and TaLynn Kel and Ian Stephen Harris and Kari Randolph and everybody else out there? You know, if you hate on me so much that it affects your own community, doesn't that in turn end up affecting the progression of you? You know, that's my thing. If you try to hinder somebody's growth so much, don't you know that when you hinder that one person's growth, you're hindering the entire community, especially when you're trying to hinder somebody like me that is trying to help grow the whole community. I'm not trying to help grow me. I'm trying to help the community. But because I have a black vagina, these people get real stressed out. And it's like, why y'all so stressed out about my black vagina? Because if I had a black penis, oh goodness, I'd be getting all kind of shit. And that's what stresses me out so much about all of this, because it gets old after a while. And I know that you all individually deal with the same exact shit. Like individually, I know all four of y'all go through the same exact unnecessary nonsense sometimes, and I just don't understand why. Like, how do y'all deal with that? Because I don't deal with it well.
Oh, poorly.
She said poorly. Oh, poorly. Well, you know what? It's funny that you said kind of like people hating in the background, and Stephanie talking about the Twitter thing. Like, I'm always surprised. I'll be like wanting to support somebody. There's like comic artists. Oh, I want to go support them. And a sister, right? A sister, like, I want to, you know, the sisterhood. And then I go look up the Twitter and I'm like, I'm blocked.
Oh my gosh.
What's somebody blocking you for, though?
Of all the people to block, Kenesha?
Of all the folks to block.
And I was like, what? Like, and there's like, it's not a lot, but it's like a handful. And every time I'm surprised. And I'm like,
child, people be laughing about stuff on the timeline, and I'll be like, how the hell I get blocked? I don't do shit but post, edit videos, and talk about comics all day. So
right.
I mean, it's such high school behavior, though. That's the thing that gets me. This is a business, and so I don't like. I'm like, and I agree that there's enough. A rising tide lifts all boats, and so if you're desperately trying to cannon and destroy the neighboring boat, there's still an ass load of ocean left. So I don't understand, like, and it's draining. I think that's my whole thing. Like, I've been doing this a long time. Like, I've been doing this a long time, and I've been in a lot of cons, and I've been in a lot of projects with people, various people. You ask, how do you deal with that? I don't deal with it well. I don't deal with it publicly a lot. A lot of times I just go and I vent to my husband, or I just check it off my box, and I'm not messing with that group of people anymore. But it's tiring, because I have a whole other front I have to face, right? I have white cons that I go to where it's I'm the only one, or there's three of us. That's a whole different mental fortitude I have to put up with, right? Deal with. But then then in turn, I have some community spaces where I also have to have yet another defense mechanism, or yet another way of having to deal with it. And when I should feel like supported and welcomed and home, right? So I definitely think that, like, for me, I don't deal with it well either. I just don't deal with it publicly. I deal with it at home, like throw things and have little meltdowns and oh my gosh, and moments and rants and whatnot. And then I just check things off on my list of, I'm not doing X anymore. I'm not working with B anymore, right? Just my own personal. But I definitely feel like there should be opportunities for all of us to work collaboratively, because there's such a force already that we're uphill force that we're trying to work against, right? And that a unified front is much, much better than these single individual attempts to move up, right? And we just can't get that support. I don't understand why. Like, I think it's frustrating, but I do think in some levels what Kenesha said earlier was that it's subconscious with some men. They just don't know that that's their hang up, or that's their block.
There's a couple of things. Like, there are people who, like, I have a list of people who I don't fuck with, and I have a list of people who I don't fuck with you, but I'm not going to trash you either. And that list of I'm not going to fuck with you, I'm not going to trash you, tend to be Black women. There are Black women who I've seen do some goofy shit, and they have said some stuff. They have a mind real funky. I'm like, oh my gosh, the stuff that you're doing, you're actually spouting white supremacist rhetoric. You are dangerous, and I can't support your work. I can't, and I'm not going to. But I'm also not going to trash you. I'm not. If anybody asks me about you, I'm gonna be like, you really need to read up on what they do and who they fuck with and all of that, because there's a problem. But I'm not going to trash you. And there's a lot of events that are like that too. But when I see some things where they're openly like waging war on people, I don't have a problem calling it what it is. And I think one of the biggest issues that we have in Black geek spaces is that we don't tell people when they fucking up. We don't use names. There are so many events I've been to where the events were trash, but because we're trying to uplift everybody, we don't say it was trash. And I'm like, we need to just own this. Your shit was trash. You can fix it though. I'm even willing to sit here and tell you how you can help fix it, but your shit was trash. And I get angry that we don't do that, because then we don't actually hold ourselves accountable. And then the people who are in the forefront are in there because of longevity, but not quality. And I would like to see people actually do better and not I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the ultimate freedom is when we can have mediocre Black people, shitty Black people, just all kinds, and we just all exist and we not getting killed for it, and we can all like thrive and so forth, maybe not as well as we would like, but still.
Well, I guess for me, TaLynn, I don't call people out normally because it's fucking exhausting. Like, I have to protect my own mental health space. And so I do believe there are different types of ways to to work on change, and not everybody needs to be in the forefront, right? And so for me, if someone asks me, oh yeah, I'll definitely be like, you may not want to step there, you may not want to go there. Or if I see somebody like Kenesha saying, I'm going to work with so-and-so, I might be like, hey, let's talk about that first. But for me, actively calling it out all the time, I just can't.
Oh no,
it
I'm not
would
even
make
saying
me
that.
like physically draining. But
I'm not even saying that.
Okay.
Not all the time. Like I'll write an essay. And be like, yo, this is how I felt about this shit. And then I move on.
And I've seen some of those, and I think those are good because it helps prep not just people who've been to that event, but people who are considering going to that event.
Yep.
Understand that if you do go to this place, here's some of the minefields you're going to have to navigate.
Right. And I don't have comments on my blog. I have them on like the social media because that's, I guess, the point of social media. But on my webpage, because I'm not policing this page. I'm not going to sit here and have to watch. This is my space and I'm fucking paying for. So I'm not letting every person up over here just saying whatever they want to say. This is my shit. So go out there and do it. And on everything, I'm like, I'm not, and I don't get into fights with people anymore. I'm over that. I'm like, this is what I said. I meant what the fuck I said. If you want to read it again, here you go. Here's a link. And then we just going on. Like, I'm not arguing with you about it.
Can we talk about the invalidation of a person's experience, though? Because I think that's a huge cue, too. It's like that lived in space and experience that you have. People are quick to deny that because they didn't have it or whatever. And I'm like, that's the same thing white folks do, right? When they try to tell you that your experience, well, Bob's never done that to me. It's the same type of like denial of your experience and saying that it's gaslighting to a certain degree. And I think that we need to address that.
Well, people need to erase that binary thinking. They need to stop thinking that either it's true or it's not. There are multiple realities that are happening at the same time all the time. There are multiple experiences that people are having, and everyone's experience is different. There's going to be some similarities and some differences, but all of them are real, all of them are valid, and we need to be able to acknowledge that this is the reality of things, and it's not all the same for everybody. Multiple things can be true. And if people could kind of start taking that and letting they look at situations from that perspective, then they wouldn't feel the need to invalidate stuff. But the people who do invalidate stuff is usually because somehow or other they benefit from it. And so they're like, oh, I don't want to acknowledge that I get something because, I'm a member of this group or I have this kind of access and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't just on merit. That meritocracy is the biggest bullshit thing that they have out there. People thinking they just got stuff because they special. Nah, you got stuff because the system was made to do it this way, and you fall into these boxes, and that helped your pathway. You still worked, but you did have these assists that look invisible, but they not. They just seem invisible to you because you benefit from them. So, yeah.
That's true.
So what all are the positives of being in this creative space that you all have had since being in the creative space? What have benefited you? What things have benefited you in joining the nerd community, geek community, fandom community, cosplay community, whatever? What have been the benefits of it? Not as far as financially, but as far as everything else.
Like Stephanie said way earlier, I make the shit I want to make. I do it how I want to do it. And if you want to be alongside, that's cool. And if you don't, fuck you. It don't matter. Like, if you like it, that's good. If you don't, whatever, that's good too. I don't care. It's none of my business how you really feel about it. But I'm going to do what I do. So I love that.
Stephanie had the most gangster facial looks. I'm about to practice the shit when we get off the live. She's been on her lane, like she's been on her look out, like her whole look. But go ahead.
The Harvey, Illinois came out, but
What about you, Stephanie? What has been the benefits? Like, what have you actually enjoyed as being a part of this community?
I'm not working a 9-to-5 anymore. I mean, I don't bring that up because of the financial thing, but I was a scientific researcher. I was an electron microscopist. I was working in STEM and dealing with the BS there. So by being able to like get into fandoms in the way that I have and express myself to the point where I could leave my 9-to-5 has brought me joy in ways that I didn't even think was possible. And also it's just made me more comfortable with my voice. I was always comfortable with it before, but it just made me like, you know, they say when you turn 30 or whatever, you know, no more fucks to give. And like that really helped solidify that for me, because I'm just like, you know, you're gonna be mad either way, whether I'm happy, angry, or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's how I feel when I lay my head down at night. And so far, like I'm enjoying it.
Good for you.
How you feel is your business, not mine.
Right.
What about you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I think it's kind of like having that community. You know, I think that a lot of times, depending on where you are, you can get that like I'm the only one syndrome. And just knowing that the community is wide. I mean, like, thank God for the internet. You know, like, thank God for the internet, because I've been able to meet so many people who have the same things in common, or I'm able to broaden, you know, what I'm interested in, you know, because I'm meeting other people that can tell me about their fandoms and I can tell them about what I'm interested in. So I think like just having that community, because I didn't grow up, you know, a lot of us as Black people didn't grow up going to conventions, you know, that's not like part of our culture. You know, like I went to a white convention in Boston, and I was talking to a woman there that was, they had like a room if you brought your kids, and she was saying, you know, her kid was like 14 or 15, and she's like, you know, I've been bringing him since he was 2, you know, and she's like, and my dad took me, and I'm like, you know, like that was like foreign to me, and I'm like, wow, you know, like I haven't had that experience, you know, because a lot of times, you know, and I grew up middle class, so it wasn't like a money issue, but it's not like on a lot of our radars. And, you know, to think about, like we said about the welcomingness of these communities, like, are they welcoming? Like, I can't imagine in the 80s, even though my dad was a Trekkie, you know, I can't imagine him going to a Star Trek convention, because he would have been maybe the only Black man there, you know, in the 80s, in the 70s. Shoot, I mean, my dad is in his 70s now, so like he's been watching it since 1960. He wouldn't think to go to some white Star Trek convention, you know. He wouldn't think about bringing his daughter to some convention. So I think just seeing that there is a wide community of Black people interested in all these different things that we're told that we're not interested in, that we're told, you know, isn't for us, is very edifying. Like, obviously I knew there had to be others, because I felt that way. I was interested in this stuff. I'm like, I'm not the only person interested in that, you know, but having the internet and being able to connect with other people who are interested in it, and especially other Black women who are interested in it, like, you know, it becomes a sisterhood. Like, it becomes a sisterhood. The only problem is that, you know, we got coronavirus here, and I can't like meet up with my sisters now. You know?
Damn pandemic.
Yes.
What about you, Nicole?
I definitely think that I was going to talk about community as well. And Kenesha raised a lot of good points. Like, I think it's important to remember that a lot of our fandoms have gone mainstream. And so, there are many more people of color who are like, ooh, I wasn't supposed to like this as a child, but I saw it now and it's popular and it's great. And so the idea of our community of speculative fiction people loving this stuff is growing. And I think that's awesome too. But without the internet, I would have have my highlighter syndrome right here in South Carolina. It's really hard to find other people who enjoy that, or people of color. So I think for me, the biggest boom has been like community. And like I was telling Kenesha the other day, like I couldn't trust my anthology to anyone else to format it but her. Like I just couldn't. Like I have other people that format stuff, but this was my baby. And who am I going to trust my baby to? I'm going to trust it to my sister. I'm going to trust it to Kenesha, right? So I definitely think that sense of making one-on-one connections, like if I have like gardening questions, Crown, you know, I'm like, I don't know what the hell happened. So it's devouring my plants, right?
I've been having a whole ass ball gardening this year.
So, man, I just definitely think that sense of community, that sense of being able to network with people who you can trust, the people who have similar experiences to you. It's that trust fall. That's really, that's what I've benefited from the most, and what I find the most pleasurable in my interactions in the community.
And the affirmations.
Yes.
Of learning that you aren't alone in that experience, that weird thing that happened that felt like it was racist to you or sexist to you, it actually was, because nobody around you will admit to that shit. And when you bring it up, they'll be like, oh, you're just imagining things, gaslight the fuck out of you.
Right. They will.
But then you go online and you're like, let me talk about this thing that happened. And people will be like, oh, yeah, man, that shit always happens. And this is normal. And why is this always? And you suddenly, and I hate it. I hate it because I hate that everybody, like, there's so many people who have experienced the same thing, because it's a very unpleasant thing. It's actually violent. But to know that, okay, I wasn't off. I can trust my judgment. I trust what I felt there. And now you have other people who are there with you reaffirming that, okay, this is happening. And now you can start being solution oriented to that. Now you can start thinking, okay, now that this has happened, how can I try to create a space where this won't happen?
Yes.
Or where have an experience where, yes, you can be solution oriented.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
As far as myself, like I say all the time, everywhere, anytime somebody give me a mic, my whole gratification are the babies. That's why I do it. I personally do it for the babies. Like when the kids come, especially in Detroit, especially here, because I do the shit everywhere, but it hit a little different when it's in the city of Detroit. And when the babies come and they just run up and give me hugs, and if it's just like one cosplayer at MECCAcon, you can't tell them shit. They so damn hype off one cosplayer. It don't matter what they cosplaying. It's a cosplayer. And they're so excited, and they're so grateful for everything I do. And it doesn't matter when their mom and dad piss me off, because the babies are happy. The babies act like I'm like the next coming of Christ. Seriously, the babies here, they love me to death. And that's the reason why I go so hard for all of this. And that's why I was so sad about this year, because I almost started crying, because the babies aren't going to be able, to experience this, because it's so important for me to make sure that they see representation, and not just representation, but like for real representation, right. Black women representation, just as much as black men representation. Light skin representation and dark skin representation, full figured and fat representation, just as big as twig representation. So like, it's so important to me that these children get these books of all kinds, because it's a lot of parents that come to MECCAcon every single year and they only buy their children comic books at MECCAcon. I'm like, but y'all know y'all can go up the streets about midnight and get books now, right? Like, y'all ain't gotta wait to Crown pull up every September. Like, y'all can buy the books. So that's my whole thing. So that the gratification of seeing children see is Nana the Weird Spider. Like, that makes my life, because these kids be going batshit like it's a damn children's comic book. You would think Greg making a children's comic book. I swear. Because these little boys and girls be going crazy over Is Nana. So, shout out to Greg. But thank y'all so much. Like, did y'all want to say anything about y'all projects that y'all are working on that just came out, that's about to come out? Your tomatoes is growing in the garden. What y'all want to say? It's y'all floor. We're chilling. I ain't got another panel that I personally have to do after this, so run them up. What are y'all working on, or what just came out? What's about to come out? What are on your thoughts right now?
So you guys can go to www.blurreddomination.com. That's where the trivia game will come out. We're doing a pre-order for the actual physical game, but like a true Black nerd, I am doing a Alexa app, a Google Assistant type of app. So you'll be able to say, hey, Google, for that, and then an actual iPhone and Android app. So it's going to be coming out in different phases that way also. But right now, I put together like a little Jeopardy style, so you can check out some of what the questions will be. They'll be different than the questions that are in the physical game, but you can play for free a little Jeopardy style blurred domination.
That sound dope.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For real though. That sound
I
dope.
love that.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk no more. Go ahead.
Right?
Wait, did I spell this right?
What was that?
Did I spell it right? Blurred domination, or is domination?
Yep, you spelled it right. Yep.
Okay. What about you, Nicole? What's up? What's going on? What you just did? What you about to do? How your tomatoes?
First of all, I had to rip out all my squash plants because of squash wars. Very unhappy about that because they were very healthy and then they were. I was pissed. I was so mad. I just dragged them to the burn pile. And then we torched them. That was very cathartic. So for Speculative Fiction Month, October, we will be releasing Slay, Stories of the Vampire Noir. There are 28 stories of vampires, slayers, and hunters from the African diaspora. And so that will be coming out in ebook, paper book, and hardcover. You can pre-order the ebook on Amazon, but that's coming out October 13th.
They just dropped me some more government money on my unemployment, so I'm about to order a whole bunch. Flat out. I've been using my unemployment on my people. Like for real.
Hey,
like I've been paying
it's your
my
money.
months and months in advance, and then I'm like, it ain't tricking if you got it. Where y'all made my son's birthday so trill this year. I swear, my son had like the trillest birthday gifts in all of his 21 years of life. So thank everybody that I supported like completely. But go ahead, Stephanie. What do you have going on? What just came out? What's about to come out? What you thinking about coming out?
So I had a Kickstarter that was fully funded earlier in the year or 2 years ago, however long. It was called Living Heroes. So that actually will be done by the end of the month. Living Heroes, just real quick, is a mashup of some of my Marvel faves, Black Women, of course, and Living Singles. So I just made like a comic that was like my own version of the sitcom. So that'll be done in October. And then I am dipping my toe into horror with a horror comic called Breast is Best. I'm talking about, my experience, as a mom, but talking about it through horror, because that is just something that I'm just really loving and leaning into. And I'm teaming up with a Black woman. All the stuff I've done, I've teamed up with Black women. And guess what? It's been dope as shit because we're dope as shit. And I don't have to worry about it.
We really kind of are, though.
So working on that. And you'll see some of my writing on Marvel.com because they called me up. I dragged their characters through the mud, and guess what? They loved it. So some of my pieces will be coming up on there, and I won't have to jeopardize my voice or any of that. So that's what I got going on.
That's the most important part. You still holding on to self even while you getting paid. Right? So that's what's up.
Yeah, I'm jealous as shit. I don't even want to talk no more. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding, but I am, because you guys are dope. So I'm actually kind of on this weird sort of hiatus, self-discovery type bullshit right now. So, like, I of all things to do, I opened up an OnlyFans account because I'm like, I want to wear pretty lingerie. I want to walk around, half dressed and take pictures and be like, look at me, I'm hot. And I found that if I posted that shit on Instagram or Facebook, my shit would get removed because they don't like too much fat. So I was like, all right, we're going to do that over here. But also, I did write my first comic script this year. It's actually it's an anthology for the Kamikaze team, which is not a Black team, but their Short Circuits is all people of color or predominantly Black people who have written and illustrated short stories. So my story is called Coyote Run. I wrote it. It's illustrated by Star Jelly Graham, and who's a Black woman, and Savannah actually, and it should be coming out sometime by the end of this year. I mean, COVID fucked everything up, so I'm happy to have finished a fiction product. I still write essays on my blog occasionally. I've had to step away from all of the mess that is reality because it was actually affecting my health negatively. But I always say just follow up, follow me on the Instagrams, on the Twitters. Occasionally I post on Twitter, and you can always reach out, but definitely check out the blog, TaLynnKel.com.
Oh, I wanted to add something. If you want to see angry Kenesha, there is an essay in Journey Planet, which is the sci-fi magazine that'll be coming out, I believe, in October. And it's about science fiction and policing. And I talk about comparing Minority Report to the way officers are killing and accusing Black people of crime. So if you want to see angry Kenesha, because pretty much online.
I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, that's the thing with all the science fiction and fantasy that comes out from, mainstream white people shit is always what happens if we get treated like Black people. What happens if on site we're criminals?
I also have an essay in that same issue called "The Future Is Now" about policing future. But I talk about dystopian futures and how the police are often used as the oppressive arm of the government, and how that's not a futuristic thing, that's now. And so that's my essay, Kenesha.
What's the name of this anthology?
Journey Planet.
Journey Planet.
Planet. Yeah.
Okay.
I also have an essay in there too.
Like, I'm sitting up here jealous. I'm like, how did I not hear about this? We all know I got shit to say, but carry on.
Okay. Well, thank y'all so much. I love y'all. I'm about to end the broadcast. If y'all want to keep talking, y'all can. But thank y'all.
Thank you.
Let me end the broadcast. Hold on.